Thank you. All right, we'll now call the City Council special meeting to order for September 30th, 2019, 6 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Pray with me. Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for allowing us to be here tonight, Lord. We just ask for your wisdom tonight. We invite your Holy Spirit in this meeting, Father, as we make the best decisions according to your will, Father, not ours, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Here.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Here.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We have a simple agenda here tonight. Item number 4, plan for the hiring process of the city manager. So at this point,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion. I
that would probably not be wise.
think I can handle it.
We haven't had any discussion
I think I
yet.
can handle it.
Okay.
I kind of think it's an odd position that our city manager is here tonight, and we're going to be discussing about his replacement. So I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead and pay him in full for the whole month of October. He's asked to resign effective the 18th, but I think we should go ahead and pay him for the whole month, and his resignation be immediate.
Does anyone care to second that motion?
I would prefer to amend it, but I don't think I want to second that one.
I'll second it for discussion purposes and see where we're going with this.
Okay. So some obvious issues with this. We have a lot of ongoing projects. That was the intention of staying on until October. So a city is a pretty complicated thing, and we have a lot of things going on. So that's why a high turnover is not a very good thing. And going ahead and ejecting our city manager, as we did with June, will leave us in a awkward position, same as it did then. We have very important things to get done. I would strongly recommend against it. I'm open to what the council has to say.
I have no problem with paying the city manager for the rest of the month, but I think the fact that he's willing to stay on as long as he said he was is a positive for the city of Avon Park, and I think we need to take advantage of that.
Well, my suggestion was going to be to pay him up through November so that because he doesn't have a contract, because he doesn't have any kind of catch-all,
Right.
And June Fisher, to our surprise, ended up getting a whole month's worth of pay despite her not being here anymore. And she was available via phone if we needed her. So the assumption was that she was on call if we needed her or anything like that, but she wasn't here. Well, that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
That exactly was the case. So that was the pretext used in order to have her get paid, which is why she ended up getting paid. So,
I mean, the reality of that situation is she left that night, and that was it.
yeah, but as far as I know, she was still available via phone. There were staff, from what I understand, that did call her for certain issues.
It wasn't a
and stuff,
coordinated thing. That might have been a casual thing, but that was not a actual agreed upon thing.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know if that would be the same thing that would be mimicked here. I'm somewhat in favor with what Mr. Spurlock is saying. It's, awkward for everyone, I think, to have them in continuous meetings and things. And I would just be of the opinion that, the city's been here since 1905. We'll survive 20 days. So,
Let me ask you a question. I kind of agree because I've gotten several phone calls from the citizens stating precisely the same thing. So now, our next topic is an interim city man, an interim or equivalent position. My thought on that is that I took upon myself, I cleared it with the attorney if I could do this, that I talked to several of the other applicants that we reviewed at our last.
So are we going to finish the first topic first, or are you going to jump ahead?
Well, they kind of intermingle to me. But if I'll stick with what you're saying. If we decide to terminate, to allow the city manager, the current city manager, to evacuate his position effective immediately and pay him through the 18th or the 1st of November. It doesn't matter to me which one. It would be more sensible through the 1st of November on my behalf, on his behalf. But however, there is a time frame in there. We're still going to need an interim city manager in there somewhere.
Hopefully, we'll have a very long hiring process, yes.
Well, the one thing is that, first of all, David, it was his choice to willing to stay, and it's his choice was to resign, and you guys voted to accept his resignation, not his termination. So the fact that he's willing to stay and be of help and assistance to Avon Park is something that we need to take advantage of, especially if, because we look into an interim replacement, that maybe they could work together for a couple of weeks or so before he leaves. So that's my opinion. I do not want to discuss terminating him at all.
No, we're not terminating him. I used the wrong term. I apologize for that.
All right.
So just to be clear, what exactly are you doing?
Exactly what I said. I have no problem in paying him through November if that's the pleasure of the council. But I think, I've never been involved in something where somebody's going to resign and they stay that long. I've just never been.
So
part
it's your
of
intention for him to do what exactly?
it. Exactly what I said,
Which is?
to terminate tonight.
To-
You mean
To not come
not-
back to the city, to not be available by phone, to not do?
I didn't say that.
Well, that's what I'm
I just said
asking
to
you.
terminate as city manager tonight. If
Which
he's
means
willing
what?
to help, if he's willing to help for a day or two, whoever we may choose, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem at all. I'm just trying to say, he said the 18th, and I'm willing to pay through the end of October. If the council wants to go through November, I'm with that. But I just think it's an odd precedent.
Why do you think it's the best thing for the city for him not to come back to City Hall?
Do what now?
Why do you think it's the best thing for the city for that to happen?
I just answered that question.
You know you didn't.
Well,
You just said
I
what
ju-
you'd
I
like to
just
do. You
think
didn't
in
say why
most
it's the
ca-
best thing for the city.
In most cases, when most people resign a position, they vacate that position immediately. They don't hang around for 3 weeks later or 2 weeks or whatever.
Do you think that's the best thing for the city?
I do.
Okay,
I think he's doing us a favor. He's here tonight.
that's right.
I have gratitude for that, but, it takes a lot for him to do that. But the fact is that he loves the city of Avon Park, and he wants to do the best for the city he can. The fact he's here tonight says a lot about his character, and I would like to see him stay throughout, at least at the end of this month, whenever.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Any other discussion on that motion?
I'm in favor of what Stanley is saying, but what I would do is actually extend it through November the 30th in terms of any benefits, because he doesn't have a contract. Let him have the rest of October and November as a severance payment along with benefits in terms of his health insurance.
So the city's not going to get any benefit out of his work. However, you would like to extend the pay, and that's a good thing for a city. How?
I think it shows good faith.
It shows good faith.
So,
It would have shown good faith to
I'm not going to engage
not.
with you, Garrett, I'm
Well,
not going to
I'm
debate.
asking you questions because
And
it's important.
I don't have to answer you.
No, you don't. But it is
Garrett,
important.
May I say something? Like Jim said, this is his city as well, and he does care about the city.
Right,
So
which is why we should keep him.
So my thought is that he would be available because he cares about the city, and we do extend his pay until the end of November, 1st of November.
That's not what his
whatever.
motion is.
I understand what his motion is, but we can withdraw that motion and a different motion can be made at this point. Is that not correct?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the motion can be voted down. You can make any motion you like.
Okay.
I have no problem in extending this pay through November. Let me redo my motion.
And I
That-
withdraw
You
my
can't
second.
redo the motion.
You have to
Okay.
vote on it.
No, he,
Let's vote on it.
You
Wait
have
a
to,
minute,
you have
do
to
we-
vote on it. Jerry, do you have to vote on it?
can't. Thank you.
It can be amended. Does anyone care to amend that motion?
I'll care to amend that motion. I make the motion that we'll let David stay on through his time frame that he said he would do to the end of this month, or the 18th, or whatever day he said it was. And I included that we go ahead and pay him throughout the rest of the year, so he'll be available to work with assist the interim people in keeping us on track for the rest of the year.
Actually, it's not a serious wording your motion.
Okay.
Microphone, please.
The amendment takes the existing wording of the motion and plugs in something in exchange for something, like if they said, allow him to stay for 2 months or through to November, say 3 months, or through December, or something like that.
That's what I did.
But what you, I think what you did was a whole new motion. So if
Okay.
that's what, if
All
that's
right.
the way you'll proceed, then the best thing to do
All
is
right.
to vote the motion down, then somebody else can make another motion if that's what you wish.
All right,
Okay.
If you want me to amend the motion, I'll amend it that we continue to pay David Flowers to the end of the year.
Okay, so is it satisfactory, Jerry, what
It
the
needs a
amended
second.
motion? No, I mean, is that a legal motion?
Well, what the original motion was that he allow him to be paid through the November, but leave today. What he's saying is he stays, but gets paid through December. Is that right?
Yes, to the
Okay.
end of
What
December.
what did you say, if he stays? I didn't hear your last part, Jerry, I'm
He
sorry.
said the amendment, as I understand it, takes the motion which was by Mr. Spurlock that would have had him leave tonight but be paid through November,
Uh-huh.
and substitutes that for stays through December.
In other words,
Okay.
works for the city and gets paid through December.
Assuming that he'll do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Assuming they'll do
It's
that.
just motion at this point.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
So that's the amendment.
So, discussion.
Well, let me ask you this question then, Jerry. Can we, if that we vote for that, can we also hire or nominate people to be the interim manager to assist working with him through the end of the year?
I would say it gives you abundantly more time to do so, yes.
Okay.
We could also actively seek a new city manager during that time, correct?
Yeah.
And you can even have the new city manager serve as assistant city manager, or have
Yep.
Mr. Flowers serve as assistant city manager. Either way, you all want to do it
Yeah.
in agreement with Mr. Flowers.
Right.
Well, I think that would avoid us from actually looking into hiring an interim city manager through the end of the year. And we could avoid that by just leaving David here. And I have trust and faith that he'll continue to do what's best for the city and finish out his year. And that gives us 2 months to try to find somebody that can replace him. And at that time, if we need to go to interim, we can do the interim at that time.
Okay. Other discussion?
To me, that makes no sense. Then why would you keep him here if he's resigned?
No, this is extending that to the end of December.
I understand what it is.
In other
but-
words, there would be no need for an interim, someone else to possibly make mistakes. They could just simply take over with the new city manager once we hire them. There would be no need for an interim.
Hopefully.
He already knows the job. Don't you see the wisdom in that?
We're ready for the vote.
Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
No.
Councilmember Spurlock,
No.
Councilmember Sutherland,
No.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion fails 3-2.
All right, so that was the amendment. Now we go back to the original motion.
Right, the original motion, as I understand it, is that he leaves tonight and gets paid through November.
Right.
Through November 30th or November 1st.
I don't know.
I believe the original motion was actually not
The
November.
30th is fine.
Of November?
The 30, that he's paid for 2 months severance pay.
Okay.
But if,
I don't think that was the original motion.
Well, does it need to be amended
We
to
would
state
have to
that?
amend
Then
it
I'd
to
like
say
to amend
that.
Stanley's original motion to extend the severance up through November the 30th to include
I'll amend it.
insurance.
I'll amend my motion that we extend.
I just
You
did.
can't.
He just did.
I just did.
Okay,
But-
yes, okay.
all right, then
That's fine.
that would be a second.
That's
He's a
second.
second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Motion by Maria, second by Stanley. All right. Now, question on that. You're saying that he vacates the city tonight. He no longer works for the city as of tonight, under that motion, correct?
Did you hear the motion?
I'm asking you to be clear on it. Is that what you said?
That's the motion he made, yes.
Well, you amended it.
And I seconded, I amended it, yes.
Okay.
I didn't change that.
All right. Okay, is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
No.
Mayor Anderson.
No.
Motion passes 3 to 2.
Okay. Now for the hiring process. In order to do this effectively, I think that we need to cast a wide net. I think that we need to seek the best applicant possible. We need a good length of time. It doesn't need to be quick. I would propose a 60-day. We go ahead and advertise the job immediately. We would advertise it for 60 days at least. Obviously, we're going to be getting to an interim position on our next item. But what does the council have to say?
I agree with that.
We need to set a hiring dollar amount. Ideally, it would be a window, as we've done with other jobs. Currently, the salary is for $90,000, I believe. So the hiring salary, Jerry had suggested that the Florida League of Cities would have hiring salaries for our size of city. I don't know that we have that information in front of us tonight. Is there any suggestions as to what those figures would be?
Did we start it off at 90,000 at the last one? Do you remember?
Well, we have the job title from, let's see if there's a date on this. I believe it was the last time, from 11/20/2018. So this would have been whenever David was hired.
Uh-huh.
And it has a salary of $90,000.
I think that was instituted when, I think Mr. Bernard was the one that had set that after Ms. Fisher had left. It was just a baseline amount that we had started out with.
Right.
I'd like to also consider that because we're going to have an interim in the time being, and you want to wait 60 days or so, then we need an interim.
I know, but that's the next item. We need to
Well,
finish the hiring
I tried to
process.
come up in there, but it is the next item, so.
Well, then that would be the plan for the hiring process. So why can't we, the plan B, hire someone interim until you get someone for sure? I mean, they're both
Why
the
can't you
same.
just wait till the next item, Maria? There's only 2 items. Let's just finish number 4 and we'll get to number 5.
Because they both go hand in
That's
hand.
what I said, but.
You know, you have a plan for the hiring process, so. in
We're
the
on item
hiring-
number 4. So
Exactly,
point of order.
exactly.
Item number 4. We will discuss the interim or equivalent position on the next item.
Okay, go for it.
I don't know why we just can't leave it as a starting salary of 90,000 with the idea that we can, move forward in the future if we're happy with that person's position. I mean, if somebody wants to apply for it and they put down what their salary is and say they want 110,000, we could consider it, but I just hate to give a wider range, which gives people a wider range of asking what their salary would be. I think that 90,000 is an excellent starting rate, that I'd rather have the next person, looked at after a year and have some type of report card policy and see if we want to give them a raise at that time.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
agree
going
with
by
that.
the other department head positions that we had discussed during the budgeting time.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It was
Okay.
prudent to have a window, even if, you don't have to approve the highest. That's your negotiating
Okay.
range. In other
All
words,
right, then I would suggest 90 to 100,000.
90 to 100, don't you think
Sure.
we ought to widen that a little bit? More like 80 to 110 kind of thing?
Okay, I'll do that.
But if you do that, then you're going to limit the choices of anyone. If you're saying that you're going to cast a wide net as possible, then you're
Right.
looking at people from near and far and who knows where, that you're
Right.
going to want you to move them here, and they're not going to move here for $80,000. They're just not going to do that. We've been down this road before. We just
Yeah.
had a city manager at, 130, and no one was satisfied with her 30 years worth of experience. So it's just going to come down to, if that person's willing to move here, because no one else in the 33825 zip code applied for the job other than the 2 that interviewed, which,
We don't know what we're going to get.
we don't know what we're going to get. But that's why I'm saying, you kind of, then you're going to limit yourself to who you're going to get if you just narrow it down from 80 to 100.
Do you have another suggestion? That's the point of this discussion.
I'm getting there.
Okay?
Okay, I say just leave it open at that end, depending on qualifications.
So you're
Start it with
saying-
a dollar amount as the bottom amount, and then leave it, subject to qualifications. I mean, isn't that something that gets put on advertisements all along, based on experience and qualifications?
There's no way I would suggest having an open-ended
Well,
number.
But
Okay, well,
Garrett, let me ask you a question, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we just go through saying that we were going to have a start and a maximum salary for our executive positions?
Yeah, for department heads.
Yeah, department head.
Yes.
Right.
So would that have included the city manager's
No.
position?
No, we didn't
it would
discuss
not
that one,
have.
no.
That's
So
executive.
it's subject, we still can do
It's up to
whatever.
us tonight to set it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can be whatever we set. I mean, it could be $1 million if the council so chooses, so.
And
Obviously, we
when-
need to be fiscally responsible, so that's a bad idea,
Yeah,
but.
when we put these salaries in here, let's say we do say from 90 to 100,000 or 110,000.
Uh-huh.
And then someone comes in and say, well, I want 115,000. You know, could we go above that?
They
or-
can, you just run into the same argument that we had during budgeting time that, oh, well, somebody may not have applied because it was capped at 110,
Yeah.
and they thought that wasn't an option kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, that's why, I mean, the highest that we've ever had, I believe, was 140, right? 140,
I don't remember, Gary.
around there, around
The highest
140.
I remember was 130, but
130, okay, 130. So, I mean, it's not that difficult, we just need to set a wide window and go from there.
But we don't want to hire someone starting at 130, our max.
Right, you're
salary.
basically setting the maximum now of what you are comfortable
What
paying a
we're
city manager
comfortable
for.
paying.
Right.
Okay.
So if that's 100, if that's 120, whatever that is, that's what the council needs to decide.
all right.
So
well,
what
if
is
it-
your number?
My number would be from 90,000 to 120,000. That's mine.
We've got 90 to 120 is the
Yeah.
suggestion.
That's the low
And the high, yeah.
Maximum, unless we change it in the future.
And then after a year, we can, after we
Yeah, you can-
evaluate, we can
exactly.
go up if need be.
So is there any other suggestions besides 90 to 120?
I think that's okay with me because, I mean, the last ones we paid was 130 max, so, let's worry about the 130 later. Let's do 90 to 120 to start.
Okay.
That's a $30,000 range for different people's, and you can judge that by their experience and qualifications, and I think that's a wide range, $30,000 range is,
Yeah.
and
I would rather see 80 to 120
why do you think 80? Do you think somebody?
because it would, we just had someone at 90. So if you hire someone and you give them the base, that's going to be taken as an insult.
Well, I think the previous two managers back, I think they started at 93,000.
Right.
So if you want to go with 80, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know whether, if some people apply, that'd be fine with me. Actually, I'll do that because maybe somebody wants to come and spend their last 10 years working for the city of Avon Park and is willing to do for 80,000 and has all the qualifications and this is going to be their retirement location. I'll go with 80.
Does anyone have any other suggestions beyond 80 to 120? Stanley, Maria?
What was yours from 80 to what, Gary?
80 to 120. Yours was 90 to 120. I just made it a little bit wider.
Are
So
you,
what you
are
guys
we
think?
talking about no contract this time too, right? Just like we did before?
I would recommend you do a contract. It doesn't have to include a huge severance in it,
Yeah.
but you have other provisions like releases, things like that, that
Vacation,
If
holiday.
you're gonna end up
house-
paying them severance when they leave anyway, I think it's better to go ahead and at least have all those things in place.
I wouldn't be opposed to a contract so long as we do not go down the same road that we had
No.
before of handing out 5 months and,
Absolutely
I
not.
Severance.
said that at the time.
Right.
That you don't have to pay somebody the maximum amount of severance simply because they're taking the job.
yeah.
Garrett, the other night you said something that kind of struck a chord with me.
Okay.
I've been here all my life, and you're talking about this is going to roll and it'll continue to roll. And I believe the city manager job will continue to roll and roll. It's always done that in Avon Park until, and this is a little different from what we're talking about, but yet it's not, until a committee's formed to see how this charter can be changed. I mean, you look at the town just 10 miles south of us, they haven't had this kind of problem. Maybe we need to look at their form of government a little bit different. I mean, somebody gets in on this manager form of government like we have, it just don't work. It just don't
Yeah.
work. It has
Well,
never worked.
We have a city charter amendment already going to the ballot this year, and we can do another one next year. You can have one every
Yeah,
year.
that's what I'm saying.
But this this ain't the discussion for that.
Right.
But,
I know that's
but
what
if
I
you
said,
want to put
but-
it on the agenda for October 14th, we can discuss it.
So looking at the website on the Florida League of Cities, they have different ways of posting jobs for managers and stuff, and some say 80,000 to 120, and then DOQ. And it has to go based on the size of your community. So to arbitrarily just yank a number out of the sky saying this is what we're gonna pay, and when other communities pay less and they have less pay less with more population, it's really based off of that as well. So, being a small city, I just think that if you started at 80 and then you put 110 or 120 DOQ, that means that it's negotiable right there. Anyone can look at our budget and see what's in that account. So they know that they'd be able to get more money based on that. But looking at what I see here on other places that plan, all of them have DOQ, depending on qualifications. I think that when you stick to one certain number and someone's
Okay.
making 140 and they want to come here and they see that it only goes up to 120, they're not even going to apply. So even if it is a retirement job. So, if you put 80 to 130 or even 140 and put DOQ, then you've got that window in there. But I just think that we're really limiting ourselves if you just set two exact numbers, because you're just going to
So you're
really turn a lot of
proposing
people
just
away.
putting DOQ at the end of that?
80,000 to
salary range?
DOQ, yeah. And I think that leaves it open. They can look at the budget. You kind of have an idea. It'll be around 130, possibly tops. But you got to take into account, if you're on FRS, you get a compulsory 25% pension benefit. So that is on top of the pay. And that's not being taken into account when you bring up this whole premise of $130,000. What's 25% of $130,000? Right?
26.
That is what you're going to be paying every year towards this person's pension, and that's by law. So, if you say 130, get ready to pay 25% pension on top of that. And that's not negotiable.
And then
So-
if you give them a raise, then that's even more.
Exactly. So, I think that we're overreaching when we say 130. Julian had an engineering degree and all this other stuff. June had a geology degree, but she was a city administrator for, I think, 8 years, and prior to that, she was in other administrative positions, and she was, what, 130? Or something? I think that's what it was.
That was her starting salary.
Right, so in those days, it was flexible. You had a different council at the time that had a lot more leeway with that. But, and no one was satisfied with her work. So here you pay top dollar for not much of much. So, do we want to go back to that and be tied down to someone? So, if you put 80 to DOQ, FRS, benefits, I think that's where it's at. It's the contract that they get that's going to make them move here, not necessarily the top dollar pay. But, if the majority wants to go with 130 and leave it at that, have at it.
I don't want to go to 130, but,
No.
one of the issues we recently had was a lot of people said they were concerned about some of the already high salaries we had on staff, so I don't think we want to consider a high salary starting for a city manager either.
I think the people need to know that it's limited. Obviously, none of us are willing to pay 130 plus benefits.
That would be $162,500 if you did a $130,000
Nobody here
bill.
wants to sign up for that. So we know that we're not going to go that high, so,
So can we just leave it at, 80 to 120?
yeah, DOQ.
And
I can live with
DOQ,
that.
that'll be
I
fine
can
with
live
me.
with that.
So far, the things that we're seeming like we're agreeing on is 80 to 120 DOQ, 60 days for the job to be advertised, and that's as far as we've gotten thus far.
That comes out to $147,500 in salary and pension. That does not include benefits, which I believe is about $5,600.
If you went with the maximum.
Correct.
Okay, so one thing that I had heard in the past, whenever we were going through and whenever David got hired, was a couple citizens had asked me about a citizens hiring committee. And I think that the people have been left out to some degree in the past, and I think they would like to have a citizens committee to help us make this decision, possibly implementing some type of grading, but if nothing else, implementing what that committee's pick would be to the council. So I open it up for discussion. What does the council think about that?
We didn't do that on the last one? We didn't
No.
have a
No.
citizens hiring committee?
No.
You had it with Bruce Barron's.
Oh,
That was the last one.
okay. That's fine with me. I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with that. And then they can narrow, if everybody else agrees to it.
Yeah.
Then they could narrow it down to the applicants. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like top 3 or something.
Yeah.
And it was actually done when Julian was hired, and the committee, which I was on, as well as George Hall, we picked, and I believe Brenda might have been on there, we picked 3 names, and so we were going to provide 3 names to the council at the time, and at the last minute of the last day on Friday, Julian threw his name in the hat, and that's how he got elected.
No, we had interviews, didn't we?
Yes, we had
Yeah,
interviews.
we had interviews.
And we picked 3
then-
people.
Yeah,
And then we were going to put those names to the city council, and then all of a sudden we had the 4th one. We put his name in the hat, and that's how he was voted.
no, we voted on it, didn't we? We voted on it, and
I don't
didn't
know.
you, think,
You're talking about Barron's?
no, Julian, when he was hired?
I don't know. Jerry, do you have something?
I just wanted to point out that if you had that committee, that it needs to meet in the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to make a recommendation and shortlist, and they need to have public records as well, notes and things like that they make are going to be public records. So
Right.
they need to be made aware of that before they take it on. And
Okay.
sometimes citizens committees don't take that seriously,
Yeah.
and they need to.
Jim, how many meetings did you guys have?
I think we had 3 or 4, and actually,
Did you have one with the actual applicants there?
yes, with each applicant that showed up, besides all the resumes that were turned in. I believe there was more than 10 resumes that were turned in. I think we might have had maximum of 9 people that were interviewed, if that. There might have been a lot of people had a date for that, and then at the last minute, they decided to pull out. So it might have been less than 10 people. And I think, like I said, at one time I asked, before we went with David, if George Hall would be on a committee like that again, and he said he would. So he would volunteer to
we'll-
be on this committee, but
We'll have to get the names later.
like I said, I know that we picked our top 3, and that's what we were going to get to the council. And like I said, then somebody convinced Julian that he should put his name in, which I believe was on the Friday, the last day. And so there was 4 names added, and basically, from my recall, it was immediately made a motion and hired Julian out of those 4.
I see. Jerry, do you have something?
But all of them was interviewed, correct?
All but Julian.
No, Julian interviewed as well.
For that committee, I don't
think you
think
have
so.
Oh,
two
so-
separate-
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, maybe not for your committee, but he interviewed
Yeah.
in front of the council, that's
Yeah.
what I remember.
Yeah.
I thought the
Yeah.
committee was the one when Bruce Barron's was hired, the Range Writers or something like that, which is an organization out of the International Association of City Managers, and they only selected individuals that were members of that organization, which eliminated a ton of other qualified people that weren't members.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to advertise it like that, it ought to be that, anyone, it doesn't have to be an International Association of City Managers person. That just means that
Right.
they joined.
Well, there are consultants that'll also
Correct.
do that.
Yeah, and those consultants are the ones that came back, and that's how Bruce Barron's was hired. But I don't,
I don't
anyway.
think that was a good process. though.
No, it wasn't, because it was very limiting. There were over 30 candidates, I think, and then they narrowed it down. So, I mean, just make sure that we don't go that route, because it really eliminated a lot of,
I agree.
potential
Yeah.
I
candidates.
agree on
I
that.
completely agree. We don't need to have them part of the
So
association.
does everybody agree with the citizens?
Is anyone opposed to the Citizens Committee?
No.
I'm
that's
not
fine
in
with
problem.
me.
As far as number of members, how many people was on the last one?
It was either 5 or 7.
I think the more the merrier. I think 7 would probably be
That's
better
fine
than
with
5.
That's fine with me. I think we
The,
could.
the whole idea here is to involve as many people as possible, to involve the community as much as possible, and to hopefully get the best candidate that we possibly can, that the community likes, that the council likes, that everyone likes and is okay with, to not have a high turnover, to have a candidate that will be a good city manager for a long period of time. That's
Yeah.
the point.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think that's what the city needs right now.
So 7 members. Is anyone opposed to 7 members?
No, I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
So the idea would be to advertise for people to be part of that, and then we could select those members at our next meeting, October the 14th, could we not?
If they could just go ahead and submit names to the city clerk,
The city
Okay.
clerk,
and
yeah.
then that can be made as part of your package for the next meeting, so you'll be prepared to go ahead and do something at the next meeting, because you're really
Yeah.
short schedule.
Yeah.
We need to get
Yeah.
it going as fast as possible.
Okay, well, we got people from newspaper and radio here. They can get the word out,
Yep.
as well as everybody at Avon Park needs to put the word out to anybody that they know to suggest putting names in.
And certainly you want to emphasize city residents for this committee.
Yes.
But don't rule out the possibility of somebody substantial outside the city that might, like the president of the college or something like that, that might have some input. I'm just throwing things out.
Gotcha. Okay, in terms of requirements and qualifications, do we want to set qualifications? I know that we have a job description here. We have an education and training. Right now, the previous one was equivalent to a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with major coursework in public administration, business administration, or related field. An advanced degree in public administration or a closely related field is desirable. Is that satisfactory to everyone, or?
Did it say four-year degree or equivalent?
It says equivalent to a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with a
Well, for the
major
amount of
coursework.
money we're paying, I think it deserves a master's degree.
I do too.
Well, I'd certainly consider that, but you might find somebody who's got huge experience and things
Yeah.
like that. I wouldn't limit yourself on that.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that it sounds like you're limiting yourself with regard to what their major was. I mean, finance is a great major.
I agree.
Business
I think
administration in
accounting is
general a good
paramount.
major.
Yeah, law.
Engineering, law, I mean, there's a lot of things that you should consider. I wouldn't specify that so much as, add, public administration experience and education are a plus. I mean, that's
Yeah.
my suggestion.
I think it's a good idea, Jerry.
Well, I think the years of experience makes a huge difference as well.
I do
Right.
too. I think the years of experience is maybe more important than whether somebody has a degree, a piece of paper.
Okay, so we are nixing the public administration or business administration related field, correct?
Unless you want to
I
have.
would put preferred,
Preferred, of course.
but
yeah.
not required.
The next line has an advanced degree in public administration or a closely related field is desirable. Is that satisfactory?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're adding not required is also good.
What'd you say, Jerry?
Not
I didn't
required.
understand.
I
Adding
think
not
that adding
required.
not required is a good thing too,
Oh,
because
okay.
sometimes people look at that as sort of like one of the requirements.
Okay.
All right, this is going to probably wind up being a very long motion before we get to the end of it.
I think somebody can just read it and then
Okay.
say, you're in favor of that, say so moved.
Okay. You talking about on each individual thing or just all at the end?
Yeah, just summarize it at the end. and
Okay, all right.
So moved.
I'd like to add some things if you're still going through the
Yeah.
list. Experience in contract negotiations.
Are these all required or preferreds?
Oh, I think that ought to be required. Familiarity with contracts and unions, contract negotiations.
But how do
Preferred.
you spell that?
Preferred.
I mean,
Contract
No,
negotiations.
I mean, how would you spell that out exactly? How do you quantify it?
Experience with contract negotiations and unions,
Preferred.
preferred.
I get it, but does that mean experience as in they was at a
Experience in
job one
contract
day and they
negotiations.
did it, or you see what I'm
No,
saying?
I mean, that's the whole thing. When they do the interview, they'll be able to say, I did this for 15 years. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that part of the process?
I got you.
So I mean, just, you're adding points, just bullets right now to
Right.
cover the position.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
Familiar with a city manager form of government. I don't have that, Lisa. Do you have that?
I don't have
description?
it.
Miss
I'm not sure
Clerk,
that-
do you have any more copies of the job description that was sent online?
No, not with me, I
Okay.
don't, sorry.
I'm not sure that adds a whole lot familiar with the city manager form of government, simply because that anybody that's going to be experienced in this area is going to be familiar with it.
Yeah,
And
but I
even
mean,
if
this,
they were- even if they
I
were-
get that, but I think it would just be helpful for them to be aware of it, because we are not that. I mean, we are that, and, how about somebody that's flexible and willing to change?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you. Let me just take a look at this one, because I had some notes on mine. Thank you. Oh, they're different.
Mayor, we look.
You mind if I sit with you?
Right now, this is the one that I'm looking at here.
This one is
Yeah, that one
23
right there,
bullets.
right?
Nope, that's a different one.
This
This
one?
is the old one. This is the one that we advertised the last time.
That one?
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the
Thanks.
one that David came in.
Yep. Okay, anything else to add?
Which one are you reading off of? Because we have two separate applications.
Reading off of this one.
What's the date on it?
That was the last one,
11/20/2018.
The last one.
This is the most
That's
recent
the one
one.
that has 23 points on the second page?
Yes.
So you're including all of those things there and then adding this other stuff that you were just mentioning?
Yes. That's in their job description.
I think
But-
airport was added to this after the fact, but it's not written in here, because remember, you brought up the airport.
It is added. It's
Is it?
there. Yeah.
Which
In
number
the
is that?
summary description.
Summary description.
But obviously, I mean, this stuff is not, it's not absolute.
And the qualifications, is the 3382 zip code going to be or do they have to be a resident?
I don't think we can do that this time.
So that needs to come out.
I think that they, I mean, do we want to have a period of time they would move here? Or at least a range? Do you want someone that lives in Miami? You see what I'm saying?
It's going to be on them. I mean, are you talking about living inside the city limits or just living in Highlands County?
I mean, I would be okay with a range, you know, a circle.
Radius.
Radius, yeah.
I would be too,
So we need to take out that.
yeah.
Well, let's see what the board,
Yes, take out the 33825. Radius is fine.
what radius are we good with?
What, I don't know, 25 miles? I don't know.
Highlands
think-
County.
Well, they
Highlands
might
County.
live right inside Polk County, I mean. Polk County's just right there.
Well,
Yeah.
for this amount of money, you know, I think that living in Highlands County, because they're going to have to be part of the territory. You know, we're not in Polk County. If they want to live in Imperial Polk County, then they can go work in Imperial Polk County. You know, here we're doing all of these things that we're requiring for this person to know, and, you know, with the amount of money that we're going to be paying, and if DOQ goes up on top of that, with the pension benefit, this should be something that, it should, in my opinion, be someone that stays in Highlands County or moves here, and give them a year to do that.
Is anyone opposed to being inside of Highlands County?
No.
Hearing no opposition.
And I mean, whoever
Well-
applies for it, if they end up being from outside of Highlands County, are we gonna end up paying them to move here if they live
I
in
wouldn't.
Polk or Hardy or anywhere else? So that will limit your pool right there.
Well, that's something you take up in the interview process.
Mhm. And we can always change, it doesn't have to be
Right.
strictly
I
this.
suggest that you make a written offer based, you know, so everything is clear.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
I don't see anything else.
So what was the number of years in experience in municipal? Because it doesn't only
5
have
years.
to be municipal, it could be county government as well.
Right now, it says 5 years minimum of increasingly responsible experience in municipal government, including administrative and supervisory responsibility.
All right, so to me, municipal kind of limits it. It should be county municipal, or, you know, you might end up getting someone that doesn't have municipal but has county.
You
or
say
has
government?
Government,
Well,
just leave it at government.
I would not,
Well,
because a state employee might apply with 20, 30 years' experience, and they're not going to know how to run a city. I think it would be city or county.
but then wouldn't
Yeah.
that go through the hiring process? I mean, that would be part of the interview process?
It could be, but you want to have like 600 or 700 applications, and there's a lot of people out there looking for these kind of jobs.
Yeah.
That's just my suggestion. It's possible a special district, somebody that works for a large special district might be qualified, like Lakewood Ranch, or, you know, the one up by Orlando, you know, somebody like that type of area, because it's just like a city. But I think you want to kind of concentrate on county or city.
What if you said local government, would that not be sufficient?
Local government would be good.
Local government it is.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else in the experience column?
All it says here, so everyone knows, it says 5 years minimum of increasingly responsible experience in local government, including admin and supervisory responsibility. Is that all the experience that we're going to be looking for, is 5 years?
That's probably not who we're going to end up hiring, but it doesn't hurt to
That's
throw it out there.
Yeah, minimum.
Or you could just simply say extensive, which is going to be
Yeah.
automatically more than 5 years.
I agree.
Extensive.
I agree.
Okay. I think that's good on the experience, don't you agree?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be subject to interpretation, and
Right.
we can always
Yeah.
go up or go down.
I think we need to get it advertised as soon as possible.
Another question, where are you going to advertise it? Just in 4 League cities or?
As many places as we can. What do you suggest?
No, I know there's a couple of hiring sites, executive hiring sites that you might want to try, but I don't know them offhand.
Okay.
I just have heard. you know,
There's one called FCCMA, it's Florida County City Managers Association. That might be one, because that covers county and city.
So whenever we make the motion, can we just say all applicable advertising venues?
Well, it could be every
Yeah, but-
newspaper in the country, really. But I would limit it to, you know, you want 4 League of Cities, absolutely. You
Mhm.
want,
The one that Kim just referenced.
Right.
Yes.
Because that's their trade organization, so that's always good.
Yep.
You probably want a major newspaper of some type.
Tampa Trib, which would be the regional one, not
They
just the
get picked up
local.
by lists.
Like Indeed, all the normal?
Yeah, well, I don't know, I mean, the general sites would be good. You want an executive site. I know there's a couple out there, but I just don't know their names.
I see. Well, in terms of a motion, how do we?
Why don't you start out with those and
Yeah.
then have somebody suggest others as need be?
Okay.
Yep.
Because are you going to leave it open, or are you going to have a termination, a period to close?
I think we need to have a closed period. That way we know how long we're going to be looking. You know, right now we've got 60 days tentatively. Is there another amount of days that the council
No.
would prefer?
I think that's,
It's probably going to take you a week to get an advertisement out there and seen, so you might want to set it for, 6 weeks? Brent, get them in and make a decision in 2 weeks?
Okay.
Is this one subject to veterans' preference, or is that lawyers that are excluded from that?
Veterans preference, I'm familiar with it in bidding context, but I have not dealt with it in employment context.
Just one?
So I'd be shooting from the hip, and
Yeah.
it's always dangerous.
Got it. Anything else to add to the, how we're going to advertise
No.
this?
I like those 3 choices.
Seeing none, be looking for a motion. Right now, we are basing this off of the job description. City of Avon Park job description, job title, city manager. This was the one that was published originally on date 11/20/2018. We've discussed it extensively. Some of the changes were full-time residency inside Highlands County, equivalent to a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university, but not a requirement. An advanced degree in public administration or closely related field is desirable. Extensive experience in grant writing and union negotiations is desirable. Extensive experience and increasingly responsible experience, including administrative and supervisory responsibility, local government. Going to advertise this for a period of 60 days with a pay scale of 80 to 120,000 DOQ.
Do we really want to go 60 days, or do we want to try to pick somebody in 60 days?
That's what I was saying, you might want to cut it off at
6 weeks?
6 weeks and make a decision too.
Advertised for 6 weeks.
Something where we'd have a shot at getting somebody permanent by the beginning of the year, possibly.
Okay. Is there anything else to, nothing else to add to that motion? Okay. Is there a second?
I don't know if that's, if is that your full motion? Because I just wanted to say, when you made the comment of living in Highlands County, it should be within 1 year of hire. You don't want them to have to move here and then he hates it and then he has a house here and he has to sell it. So shouldn't we give a time frame of having to live here in a certain time frame before?
That's
Yeah.
generally
Yeah.
pretty.
I'd say 6 months.
6 months? So we will have a 6-month evaluation possibly, and nothing works out, he's, okay. All right, it's a big risk there, but, all right.
I mean, I'm open to suggestion.
Well, I'm just saying a year, you know. I mean, David was here for 8
What-
months. It was a blink of an eye. So if we just put in here that their residency in Highlands County within 1 year of hire, that gives a little more flexibility to that individual and a
Yeah.
more palatable approach towards moving here.
Why don't you
Yeah.
make that a motion?
Yeah, I personally think that it would take a year for us to make a
Okay.
better evaluation.
So that's the motion, 1 year.
Yep.
Does anyone care to second it?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? We can always amend it if need be. Seeing none, we will call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes,
Motion passes unanimous.
thank you. All right, now for the,
Dave, Gary, can
Yep.
you please give me about, today, you say we're gonna put the advertisement within the next couple of weeks? Is that what we said?
as soon as possible.
Okay.
What are you looking for exactly?
Well, I was looking at, start and finish date of the advertisement to the ending date. So I just want to put it on my calendar approximately.
As soon as it gets listed, you will send an email to the council letting us know when it was listed and letting us know when it will end.
Yeah, so I'll work with Brenda on it and we'll get it out. We can get it to Florida League of Cities for sure tomorrow, and it takes a couple days for them to post it. So we can do that. We just need a closing date. You want a closing date to be November 15th?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, whatever 6 weeks is.
Yeah.
6
Yeah,
weeks.
but
Because
if it's-
tomorrow's the
yeah, we could
first,
round it out to
so-
November 15th,
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
Okay.
I think that's just too short of a time. 6 weeks to me is just really short. We have employees listed on the city website that have been on there for 2 months. And
In
we're gonna
six-
do a city manager in 6 weeks. It just,
In 6 weeks, you'll have 100 applications
Yeah.
well,
or more.
Okay.
November 15th is a Friday, so the only reason some of them were on there longer is because nobody was going to hire somebody, so.
Right, and then we'll try to make a decision within 2 weeks of that. At our October 14th meeting, it would be the intention to set that citizen committee with 7 members. So hopefully we'll have a lot of applications sent to the city clerk in between now and then.
So they can just give a phone call, correct? To the city clerk?
I mean, they would have to provide their information, you know. I mean, they would want to provide as much of a resume as they can, obviously,
For the citizens.
for the citizens committee.
Yeah, like a short bio or something?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, similar to whenever they apply to be on advisory
A
boards
board
or
or something
things.
like that. Yeah, that's good.
Exactly.
Just to make sure we don't publish something that, yeah, we have a misunderstanding on, do you want to have it sent out to everybody and then have any one commissioner or council person have the authority to put the brakes on it until the next meeting? If it's like totally different than what, I'm not saying you would change anything, but if we think we're in agreement here, but maybe we're not,
what do you mean?
well, she's going to put it all together based on his markup.
Mhm.
She can send it out to you. You can't correspond on it because we're not having a meeting. But if you see something that's like, oh my
Oh.
God, I can't live with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we
then
can
you simply
reply
say-
back to her.
Any commissioner, a council person can say, okay, I want to stop this, and then it goes to the next meeting. Because you're not looking at a draft.
Yeah, I'd like a copy of the mayor's markup, and then, yeah, like you say, once we get it together, send it out for approval.
Right,
Yeah,
I just suggest
definitely.
that.
So when you
Okay.
say send it out for approval, if someone has something
Don't-
freaky about it, then it gets back on the agenda for final approval with everybody?
Right, next meeting.
Right? So then that means
It's
on the
better to put it
14th.
off, better put it off the next meeting, or even have a special meeting, than to, have something go out as an advertisement that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
And not in agreement with everybody.
Right.
So when she send it out to us, and if anybody got anything that's, they cannot live with, then we will that individual will contact her, and then,
She won't send it out to.
no, she won't send it out, but then you'll
Contact the mayor.
contact you. Well, someone needs to, if we need a special meeting.
Yes.
And it won't have to wait till,
Yeah, I mean, if there was a request for a special meeting, the city clerk would call me and say,
Yeah.
there's been a
Okay.
request for a special meeting.
all
And
right,
then it would be up to me to call it at that point.
gotcha.
Yeah, because you're not meeting again until the 14th, so
Right.
it might be appropriate, if it does blow up for some reason, to go ahead and have a special meeting on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So do we need to appoint a person or no? No, I'm talking about one council member to be that person.
No, I'm
Okay.
saying any council
Okay.
person that reads it.
Got
and
it.
says, whoa, that's not what we agreed to,
Got it.
you know.
Yep,
Okay.
little proof.
All right, now for the discussion of the interim or equivalent position.
We made a motion, and I think there was a second. Did we vote on that?
I
Yeah.
don't think we did.
We didn't vote on it.
Oh, no, not on the whole thing,
No, I don't think we voted. We did make a
Right.
motion, second didn't vote. We should
All right, is there
vote.
any further discussion on that motion of what the job
No.
description will be and how it's going to be
Description
advertised?
No, you did vote on it. It was unanimous.
Oh,
It
we
was-
did? Okay, good.
You made the motion, Deputy Mayor Bernard seconded it, and you all voted
You know
unanimous
what,
for
sure,
it.
we did. Boy,
With
our
all,
minds are-
with all of the additions and changes,
Okay.
yeah.
We did.
Okay.
Okay, now,
All right, now for the discussion of the interim.
Moving
Okay.
parts here.
I was thinking about that myself, and I think,
So as we sit here tonight, we do not have a city manager,
yes,
so we need a person to step in for interim. And we need to decide that. Obviously, we're hoping to have someone in place by December 1st. But even then, there may be a 2-week period, a month period of them actually taking effect. So this could stand for, I would say at the maximum, up to about 4 months would be the worst case scenario,
worst case.
right? Okay. So, does anyone have any suggestions?
I do. I
Let's hear it.
had talked to the city attorney, and I also asked if it would be appropriate that I contacted some of the people that we interviewed from the last interview section of the city manager, and he said that I could do that, which I did. I turned it around and I even talked to some people we did not interview, reputable citizens in our community.
Uh-huh.
And I talked, I'm not going to name their names because
Well, you kinda
couple
have-
of them-
If you have a suggestion, you kind of have to.
I am gonna name the suggestion
Okay.
name that I spoke with, but the other two had told me yes, but then they turned around and thought about it, and they said, call me back as early as last night, yesterday, and said, no, can you please just
Right.
remove my name from it, which was okay, you know. But then I did speak with Mark Schrader, who was one of our interviewees of our last city manager. I talked with him, and he asked him, would he be privileged to sitting in as a city manager, interim city manager, if the council selected him? And he told me he wouldn't mind doing that. So with saying that, I thought Mark Schrader would be a good person to ask for our, to be our city manager.
My only issue with that is that he applied for the job, for the position last time. He may turn around and apply for it again this time. I really would rather not have somebody sit in as interim city manager than turn around and actually apply for the job permanently.
Yeah.
My opinion was to act quickly to who would be the most qualified and experienced with the city to do that immediately. And my opinion is to take 2 of the 3 ladies we used last time, who I thought they did a fantastic job. They worked for the city. They were full knowledge of how the city worked with, and the fact that they have an experienced and qualified clerk to assist them, they could step in immediately because they did it a year ago. And I think they did a fantastic job. We all said that they did, I believe. And I think that instead of trying to go after somebody who may apply for the job permanently, I personally would mind if we put Danielle and Marnita in that position. I think Savitri has probably got her hands full with the billing department. I don't think she's interested in that, in my opinion. But I think the other 2 might be. And I think we should strongly consider the fact of putting those 2 in the position once again, because I thought they did a fantastic job. They've had the experience of doing it. They're not going to apply for the job permanently. And I think that they could step in immediately, because we're not going to have somebody in the office tomorrow morning, but they both will be there. Marnita's right over here. She'll have plenty of time to go over and across the way and spend most of her time over there and assist. Like I said, Danielle works in financial, so I mean, I think those are 2 great representatives that we can put to work immediately. I personally trust them, and I think that if I need to, I'll make a motion to do that.
Well,
So,
Jim,
one of-
wait, okay, I'm sorry.
One of the issues with having an inside person is the fact that they are doing another job.
Yeah.
So they did a great job under the circumstances, but I do not believe that that is an ideal scenario by any means. We did have a person that currently works for the city as our magistrate that offered. He is an attorney, obviously, but he has been the city manager of Joliet, Illinois,
Ooh.
for a period of 5 years, which is a city I believe that has around 150,000 people in it.
The city I was born in.
Okay, so you're familiar.
Very.
And he said that he would have no problem getting us a replacement while he was interim, and he has no aspirations whatsoever of being a full-time. So you're not going to potentially taint or hurt anyone else's chances of becoming a full-time city manager by doing it. Our magistrate services would still be done, and I think that he's more than qualified to handle it.
I like
He
that idea.
has obviously an extensive background in law, which around here can be very handy. And I think that he could keep it together and be a good leader for the 2 to 4 months that we may need him.
I like that idea.
Jerry, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If, and I don't have a problem with that, I think that's a good idea. I just don't want to take away from any of our current employees' responsibilities,
Right.
you know,
We need
because they're
to
doing.
add to, not take away.
Add to their responsibility, you're right, add to their responsibilities. The ladies that did it before, yes, they did do a good job, and I really appreciate that. But now each one of those ladies have full job that they need to.
They've both been
perform.
promoted.
Yeah, I think they are needed there. I don't have a problem with the other guy that you were speaking of. I just was trying to find somebody
Yeah.
that cared about our city, that would be willing to step in and assist the city. And I thought of Mark Schrader, who I thought was a good choice.
I tend to agree with Brenda, and I don't have an objection to someone stepping in interim and then deciding to apply for the job. I mean, what difference does it make if they were interim?
It's going to give
If
them.
they want to apply, but we have a committee. I mean, the committee
Yeah.
is going to be impartial supposedly. They're not going to be working with the individual. I'm just thinking, you probably get them, which begs the question, if you're a magistrate, are they going to appoint someone else from their office to come in and do magistrate work? Or because he can't
That was
do them
the
both.
idea, yeah. He can't,
Well-
it would be a conflict to do both.
So he
You
couldn't
would
do them
have to-
both.
You would have to appoint them. But it has to be somebody who's not doing any other cities and doesn't have any other
Right.
office.
Which he's familiar with.
So Jerry, is there anything that if Mark Schrader is appointed interim and he accepts the position, is there anything in there that says that he could not apply for the position if he wanted to?
No, there's nothing that says that he can't do both.
Okay. And then again, once he do interim, he might say, I don't want to be full-time.
Right.
And we never know.
Yeah. I strongly support Tom Thanos
I do too.
from the magistrate. I think he's more than qualified. He's done this sort of thing before on a much larger scale, and he has the legal experience to find his way through as we have the layover time here before the next city manager. He's also very familiar with a lot of the inner workings of our city government, as he is our current magistrate. So he's familiar with our code enforcement issues and a lot of other things.
All right, I'll make a motion, we go ahead and approve our magistrate as the interim city manager.
For a period of up to.
It might be open-ended. You don't really know for sure.
That's
Okay.
fine.
With that, you would have to also set what the pay would be. You can't just be anything. It has to be set.
Well, I think
In the past, we did what the previous
Correct.
city manager was
Yeah.
getting paid,
Well,
wasn't it?
I think that would be reasonable.
Well, when you spoke to him, did you discuss the pay?
I did.
What did he say?
He said that he would be acceptable with what David was getting paid, whatever that was.
Does that go to him or does it go to his firm? I mean, is it
It
individually
would go to him.
will he be working for his firm still?
This would be his,
This would be his primary, I guess.
Right.
He'd have to be here every day.
I think he'd have a problem working for his firm and being your city manager.
right.
So what
But
would
like I say,
happen?
he just offered and he seemed like a heck of a candidate, you know. And the best part about it was he had no aspiration of being the full-time, so there was no, you know, it was completely third party. You know, he could care less how it goes after that. Obviously, he's going to want to return back to magistrate, of course, but, you know, and if he does, you know, too poor of a job, then that could hurt that chance, I guess, but
I prefer keeping him as magistrate.
I would much rather see an outside person.
I made a motion on the floor.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Any other discussion on it? Stanley, you have anything? Okay, if there's no further discussion, then we'll call the roll.
Did you second it?
Who seconded?
I seconded it.
Okay.
And this is for, to
This is
have,
for-
appoint this
To
gentleman.
appoint Thomas Thanos
Interim
as
city
interim,
manager.
yeah.
No.
It's obviously
Okay.
open-ended because there's always a chance that we may not have anyone in that time frame of 4 months, but I would,
We will, I think
yeah,
we will.
probably less than 3 months, but.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Gray?
No.
Councilmember Spurlock?
No.
Councilmember Sutherland?
No.
Deputy Mayor Bernard?
Yes?
Mayor Anderson?
Yes,
Motion failed, 3-2.
Now, may I make a motion?
yes.
I move that we appoint, appoint Mark Schrader, who interviewed for us our last time, to step in as our interim city manager and pay him the salary that we paid our current city manager.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes?
Councilmember Spurlock?
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard?
No?
Mayor Anderson?
No.
Motion passed, 3-2.
Okay.
So in the meantime, between now and if
I'll call
he
him
approves-
tomorrow, or do I call him, or you want the attorney to call him, or would you call him?
I think someone from the city should call.
City clerk should do that.
The clerk?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there any issue with the city clerk calling?
I don't see any issue with the city clerk calling and inform him that
and what was it?
I'll
It's
give
like
you
it
his
is,
number.
Nomination.
interim city manager.
Okay.
So I have a question on that. Because he would be new and interim, does he have the full authority and vesting powers of a city manager to hire and all that?
You just appoint him as a city manager.
Okay, so for that same token, I would not want to see any staff hiring anybody without the consent of the city manager.
Or terminated.
Or
There
terminated.
you go.
I agree
No, no
with-
staff. The city manager is the only one that can do hiring and firing. So no staff, actually, staff can do it. It's in, they can. The city manager doesn't have to fire somebody.
But
I
you're,
thought all of them worked for the city manager.
They do, but if you read the policies, they can hire as well.
The staff?
Yeah, I think a
Department
I think a
head?
director can fire. I'm not sure, I might be wrong there, but anyway, what I'm
I-
getting at is if this person is going to be the one that's going to be overseeing any hiring practices, then I would hope that, as it stands right now, our new fiscal year kicks in tomorrow, I don't want to see anyone getting hired until this person vets that employee that gets hired.
let me just simply suggest that that particular motion would be fine. I think the motion of saying that you're going to freeze firing
No, well,
goes into the purview of the city manager, which is still under the charter. But the hiring freeze is within your purview to do. So, you could do that. Now, I mean, as far as the firing, if you don't like it, the majority of the board doesn't like it, then you just throw the city manager out, rehire the person with all their circumstances. I think they're going to understand that they should not do something like that lightly.
Yeah, I think so.
well, you hope so. So I'm
But-
just saying,
but, you know-
whoever comes in, if they know that, tomorrow is the beginning of our fiscal year. And if someone's gone through the hiring process and we're waiting for the new fiscal year to kick in tomorrow to hire them, I'm saying I would want this city manager to be able to review that documentation prior to hiring and not just automatically say, here, sign
No,
this.
I said that the hiring freeze is fine.
Okay,
It's the firing freeze that I have a problem with.
okay.
And
Well-
that's not something that's, can't be remedied by this board in an emergency meeting.
Okay.
Well, they get all the powers. I'm
Hiring is
just,
a little more difficult
Okay.
to remedy.
I'm just saying that staff doesn't have the authority to hire anybody tomorrow, that it has to be a city manager to do that.
Well, you need to make that a
So,
motion.
Well,
so
I mean-
you're gonna allow the interim city manager to hire somebody, and he may be the next city manager?
Well, we
That has
have,
nothing to do with-
it has nothing to do with it. I mean, what difference does it make if you're giving him
Yeah.
the vesting powers?
Right.
So, it's typically based off of recommendation from the department heads and the HR person. So I'm just saying that, if anyone was already a shoo-in and they're not going to get hired till tomorrow, that it just be vetted by the city managers, that they can, manage that and say that, yeah, they reviewed it. And make sure that the hiring process was adequate.
Well,
So, I mean, I don't want to deny the firefighters 2 more firefighters or the other ones there, but, they have recommendations also, so let it go through the process. It would have been the same with anybody else in there. You're going to give someone else the rights to hire and fire. Why
I
not this
wouldn't- I
interim
wouldn't
here?
have done that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I don't know that Mr. Schrader is going to apply for this job. I think
don't
he
know
has a
if you
very,
do either.
I think you have a pretty good idea.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Why you say that?
Because you brought it up. Obviously, you had a conversation with him.
I did talk with him, I said that.
Right, so you have a
Yeah.
good idea that he's going to go for it.
I asked him about interim, I didn't ask him about
Okay.
if he was going to, apply for the position, I wasn't
Okay.
interested in that.
Okay.
so that being the case, if we do a hiring freeze, what you're saying is not to hire anybody and have the city manager not hire a soul. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you could be more
Until we
specific.
tell him he can.
Right.
Could you
Right.
do it without the approval of the council? Could you make it to where the council has to approve the hire? Would that be a possibility?
And then we would be infringing on his day-to-day operations.
Yeah, it's like a light switch, because the charter, you're basically saying that we want to protect the fisc, your budget, by not having any hire. And perhaps the way to do that is no new positions, and, just ask the new city manager when that person's in front of you to say,
You can only fill open positions.
yeah, would they please vet that with you? I mean, we're not going to tell you what to do, but vet it with you, and we'll give you our feelings on it. I mean,
Yes, because you have a couple of important positions coming up with the finance director and finance analyst.
That's true.
And the fire department, they have 2, I don't
Yeah.
want to
Code
stop
That's
them
enforcement.
from getting what they need.
No, not the fire department. We need them. Help us.
well, you want to.
Well, I have no problem with this individual hiring people. I just want to make sure that anyone is in the process that was going to be hired tomorrow, if that were the case, cannot be hired tomorrow until this is vetted by whoever sits in there. If it's Mr. Schrader, then so be it.
We
I
don't-
want to make sure that our hiring practices were done appropriately, that everything was advertised legally per the contracts of the union and our employee handbook.
If we
That's
don't-
what I'm after. So if that can be done, then, when he's spoken to, then, let him know that that's at least my sentiment on it. I don't know about the rest of you.
As it stands right this minute, we do not have a city manager, correct?
No, we have an interim city manager.
We have an interim. So what it sounds like to me is that you're worried about something that the previous city manager could have done, right? Is that true? Because if that's the case, he's no longer here, so he can't do anything. Is that wrong?
Sounds right to me. I mean, but
Is it wrong?
If he's hired somebody to start on October 1st, then you have a problem, because even though he's gone, they've been promised the job to start on October 1st. I think that's what she's concerned about.
Yeah.
But having a new city manager wouldn't have changed that if he's already give it to him, would it?
No, but I don't know if she wouldn't have made the same.
No, I'm saying if the budget kicks in tomorrow,
Yeah.
you can't hire until tomorrow. If someone's been promised a job, I want to make sure that the new city manager, interim, however you want to call him, is able to vet that the staff does not have the authority to hire people. That's what I'm getting at. So if he can sign off on somebody and sees that the process was done appropriately, then great.
Got it.
So,
When I talk to Mr. Schrader tomorrow, how do you want me to handle it as far as him starting? Just work it out with him when he can start?
When he can start.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, if
Yes.
it's going to be a month, that's going to be a problem. We need to know
Right.
about that.
No,
Right.
he won't. Because he told me he doesn't have a permanent position right now.
Right.
So,
Well, And I would just suggest you have them review the tape with regard to the concerns.
And
That's the easiest thing, don't you think?
And the job description with the
Councilperson Sullivan?
changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, he needs to be sensitive to that, especially if he wants to apply for the position permanently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So what was the rate?
Of the current
You already
90,
decided 90?
I believe it was 90 base and then whatever the benefits were. Okay, so is there any other motions on the interim or equivalent position? Seeing none, that concludes item number 5. This is a special meeting, so ideally we'll not be bringing up anything other than what's on the agenda.
A motion to adjourn.
Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.
Hey, Susie?
$118,000.